Welcome back to the Expat Files. I'm Tay Nix. In this short video, I want to talk about the two truths. Now, this is probably a radical idea for a lot of people, but I came across an interview recently, and I encourage everybody to go watch it for reasons that I'll explain that go beyond this video and the point that I'm making here. It was an interview on Tucker Carlson's podcast of a guy named Richard Werner. He's a economist. He wrote a paper decades ago in Japanese, and he was talking about his experience in Japan at the time. And he said, in Japan, they actually have two words for the two truths that people in society have to navigate. And I thought, what a fabulous concept. What I love about this in Western kind of thinking, like that is anathema, right? Even though it is very clear, especially from recent history, that we are very often required to deal with two different truths. And the idea here in Japan, and the way it was explained by Richard Werner, is that there's an official truth that is like the societal truth that the people in power kind of need you to believe and go along with, right? The people in the power structure who run the societal institutions sort of have their narrative that they need you to obey, and that, like, right, for the sake of social harmony, you're supposed to sort of know what this is and sort of try to go along with it and toe the line, or at least know what it is, right? And then there's reality, right? There's a second truth. There's an entirely different truth that, like, the regular average guy on the street, the working man, has to deal with in his life. And so I love this idea. I love this concept because it highlights one of the things that I discovered in my 25 plus years living sort of on the road globally. If you think offshore structures like where to bank, how to invest in foreign real estate, and where to set up your foreign trust are difficult or complicated, they're not. That's not the hard part of creating an international lifestyle. The hardest part is the decision to go. That's why I wrote Secrets of the Expat Adventure, to share with you a deeply personal view of what happens when you decide to cast off the chains of a normal life full of predictable outcomes. I don't want to spoil the ending for you, but you quickly discover yourself living your best life, the life you were meant to live, instead of the one you're stuck with. Across 156 pages, I'll share the incredible adventure I've enjoyed because of my decision to leave my old life behind and create an international lifestyle. I lay out for you the consequences of remaining in a life or location where everything is familiar, contrasting that with the almost magical growth and gain that is possible once you decide to take the path of adventure. There's something deeply mysterious about choosing an adventurous life. Once you commit, helpers appear, and events seem to unfold in an almost magically choreographed manner. You find yourself learning, living, and loving your life in a way that you thought you'd lost forever. There is no financial gain that compares with the recovery of the best parts of yourself. Fortunately, the decision to internationalize is also a great way to get wealthy. I give you real examples of how much easier it was for me to find and profit from the real estate and other investment opportunities I came across simply by choosing to play on the very uneven playing field of developing markets. If you're worried about what's happening in your home country and you're on the fence about whether or not you should create your own plan B, Secrets of the Expat Adventure will give you clarity and inspiration to choose your own path of freedom and adventure. I promise you'll never look at your life the same way again once you discover what an international lifestyle can do for you, your family, and your wealth. To get your copy, click the link below this video. Which is that, by God, if you learn about ideas from other cultures, you have an advantage in the world. Here, I'm at my place in Central America. I'm in the highlands, in the mountains in Guatemala, on this beautiful high mountain lake, Lake Atitlan. And the number of things that I learned here from the indigenous people, and just from seeing and living in and experiencing a different culture and getting a chance to talk to and meet on a deep level of friendship with a lot of the people here, and being exposed to the ideas that exist in Maya culture, for example, that don't exist in my culture of origin in the United States, has been a source of incredible enrichment, like a rich, deep vein of thinking that comes out of that, well, if you didn't experience other cultures, you just wouldn't know about these other ideas. Sometimes that comes in the form of a word, that, like, they have words for things in Maya, that in Maya indigenous dialect that we do not have words for, right? So no word, no concept, right? If you don't have the word, you can't explain the concept. If you have a word in your language for something, then it's easier to think, right? You can actually think differently in different languages, in different cultures. And so this idea that there are two truths, that there are words for, and that it is acknowledged across Japanese culture that there are two separate truths: the official truth that you're supposed to believe in, that's kind of like it has the seal of approval from the powers that be and the people who run the societal institutions, and of course the reality that people have to navigate on the ground, like the real thing that's going on. It's a fabulous idea, and of course you know where I'm going with this, which is that we are up against, in this time of tremendous change and very likely an extended period of chaos right over the horizon, where consistently you've been told to believe the official truth that, of course, is the one that the people in power would like for you to sort of go along with and smile and grit your teeth and grin and bear it and sort of believe in, so that things can continue and they can continue to play their games, their power games. And then, of course, there's the truth that you have to navigate. You don't have to think very deeply about this to know what I'm talking about. The Epstein list. Obviously, if the U.S. used taxpayer money to help trap and get blackmail and dirt on high and mighty powerful people by having this Epstein fella pimp young chicks and young boys in some cases, right, to the powerful people who wanted to use them as sex toys, well, obviously they're not going to reveal that truth. The official truth is there is no list and it never happened, I guess, is what you're supposed to believe. But obviously, right, there's plenty of evidence that that's not true, right, that the reality is something completely different. The COVID thing was another great example of this, a complete fiasco. Like the idea that you're going to wear a surgical mask and it's going to stop you from getting a virus, and you have to wear your mask when you enter the restaurant, but if you sit down, you can take it off to eat because the virus doesn't get into you then, right? Like the unbelievable bullshit that you were asked to believe during the whole lockdown era in the early 2020s. Right on through to, right, you name it. Like, obviously, it's very bad that the Russians won't allow Ukraine into NATO. But if Russia and China wanted to put troops on the border with Texas, like, obviously we would go to war over that. So, like, again, like, there's an official line that you're supposed to toe the line on, sort of the official narrative that the people in power want you to go along with. And it's very, very dangerous if you don't also have some concomitant or some parallel track in your mind about, like, yes, that's the bullshit version that we're supposed to believe in, but by the way, the reality of what's actually happening is over here. I think that people who live and grew up in their culture of origin, never went outside it, and live in that society, and there's a huge reluctance. There's a tremendous inertia that I see among people who either don't or haven't had the good fortune or made the effort to travel and live and look at their own culture and society from outside. This doesn't necessarily make anybody a bad person, but there's a tremendous ignorance around what is actually happening in the world. And you can find really good people. I talk to good people all the time in the United States, especially, who have really wild ideas about what's taking place in the world. And it's like, if you never think beyond the official version of what you're being told to believe, well, you're going to get blindsided. Another great example of this came from that exact same interview with Richard Werner. He was talking about the way in which money is created in our monetary system, right? The idea that most people have, and the official truth is, and if you talk to like a government economist, a macroeconomist who works at the Fed, say, for example, there is an official truth that money comes into creation because the government creates it. The Fed and the central bank actually create it. The reality of that situation is that that's not how money is created. Money is created largely through the commercial banking structure, and it is commercial banks that lend money into existence. The official version is that they take your deposits from a bunch of different people, and if you need a loan, right, you go to the bank and they loan out money that is deposited by other depositors, right, other regular people who have deposited their money, and they get to lend out that money, and you get a loan and you pay back the loan, and they make a few percentage points on that loan, and that's how banks make money. This is not how it works, right? The banking system creates money out of thin air. You come in for a loan and you say, I need $1 million to buy this property, and they create money, and bingo, presto, poof, right? This money appears out of thin air. Why is this important? Well, because if you don't understand that it's the commercial banking system that creates the money in our monetary system, the belief that the central bank and the government, like there's some group of benevolent, dedicated, selfless, bureaucratic types, right, who only want the best for society, and they're looking out for the system to make sure you don't get screwed, and that nothing bad happens, and then it flies off the rails, and we blow up the entire financial and monetary systems. Well, obviously, right, your chances of getting blindsided by that complete complete and total bullshit lie go way, way up. But if you understand that the way the monetary system works and the way money is created and comes into being is that it is lent out of nothing. There's trillions and trillions of dollars that exist, and there's no way to control this, right? You would have to shut down, I guess, all the banks. It's not even that banks in the U.S. get to do this. There's tons of banks outside the U.S. that get to create U.S. dollars. This is called the Euro dollar system. A guy named Jeff Snyder, check out his Euro Dollar University. He does a great, great podcast on this, teaching people to understand, right, the majority of the money that exists in U.S. dollar terms is created outside the United States in banks that exist outside the U.S. and that are outside of easy regulation and control by any kind of U.S. monetary authority. Why does that matter? Because it tells you where the power center actually lies. The government does not control the banking system. It's the other way around. Right? The banking system tells the government what's going to happen and what they're going to do and what they can and can't get away with. And so, and obviously there is a, right, I mean, that is a two-way door, right? That door swings both ways. The government and the banking system obviously have plenty of reasons to be in cahoots together. There's no question the power of the state, which is the power to use violence with legal impunity, and the people who create the money, well, these are natural bedfellows, right? These two groups go together like peanut butter and jelly, if you will. That they are naturally partnered in their common interests, right? This is what's known as, right, classically understood to be fascism. Fascism is government power and corporate power together, working together, right? The corporations and the state combining their powers together. The power to use violence and the power to create money fraudulently out of nothing, right, goes those two things go together like hand and glove. And so why am I telling you this, right? It's important to understand the two truths that exist. There will always be a societal narrative, right, that the people running the societal institutions need you to believe. They need the population to galvanize around a belief structure. We are living through a time when that belief system is cracked and it is not coming back. You cannot put Humpty Dumpty back together again on this topic. And the depth of deception that is being perpetrated over and over and over again is going to lead to a disaster. There's no example in history where huge groups of very powerful people got to lie over and over again and got away with it with no consequences. So why am I telling you that? Because what we do here at Expat Files is help people set up global structures to weather the storm, to ride out the chaos that's coming, and to protect yourself, your physical safety, and your hard-earned wealth, your family wealth, your legacy wealth that you're going to need on the other side of whatever chaos is coming. And hopefully, if we all survive it and don't blow ourselves up, then the world will remake itself, and there's at least the possibility somewhere out in probably 5 to 10 years, and nobody knows for sure, where a tremendous golden age is possible. Obviously, you got to get there. We have to make it through to the other side. My goal is to help you navigate this by internationalizing your life and your wealth.
If you're worried about the financial and monetary systems, geopolitical tensions, central banks triggering runaway inflation, and what all the above will do to your wealth, well, you should be. The question isn't whether or not you should own gold. The real question is, do you have enough? It doesn't really matter what happens with Bitcoin, interest rates, spiraling debt costs, or any other variable in our increasingly chaotic world. Why? Because the solution to all those risks is the same, and because central banks from Beijing to Moscow, Singapore to Switzerland, are all telling you what their answer will be when the wheels come off. It's gold, dummy. That's why I use the all-in-one dealer and vaulting service SWP Cayman. Why? Because you can buy and sell right from your online dashboard, and SWP protects you from any risk of government confiscation or capital controls. They offer vaulting services in Grand Cayman and half a dozen other jurisdictions all around the world. It's convenient, it's fast, and it lets you move a big chunk of your legacy wealth outside the financial system quickly, while still allowing you to sell and move funds anywhere in the world when the time comes. To get set up with an account at SWP, go to swpcayman.com/ChristianNix. That's www.swpcayman.com/Christian-NIX.
International diversification is a type of freedom insurance. The biggest risk that you face right now is your home government. These are the people who believe that they have the right and certainly they have the power, whether they have a moral right or not. They certainly have the power to control you, your movement, your freedom, and your money. And so if you want to put distance between yourself and the people who pose the greatest risk to you, which is your home government, the government that owns your passport, then what you need to do is set yourself up with different international structures that not only protect you and your wealth and give you options through a very chaotic period that is likely just around the corner. You can also create the kind of structures that allow you to compound your wealth at a much faster rate by deferring tax payments. If you set your international structures up correctly, and this is what we help people do here, you can grow your wealth much faster by deferring tax payments by keeping this money offshore. This is completely legal to do. Again, the official version is that somehow this is illegal and right, you're avoiding tax and you're cheating the IRS. Nobody's cheating the IRS. You can't get away with that these days. That's a fool's errand. But there are ways to legally defer your tax payments by keeping your money offshore and allowing it to compound. The incredible thing that I discovered is you really don't need a lot of money in order for this to make sense. And the cost that you incur by setting up these kind of international structures that allow you to defer tax and grow your wealth faster offshore is the amount that it costs you to do that. The compounding of your wealth will more than pay for this in very short order. You don't need a ton of money. You don't need to be a decamillionaire in order to really benefit from offshore structuring. If you have roughly $500,000 investable net worth and you put that money offshore and in a tax deferred kind of international structures, what happens is that money compounds much faster than if you were paying tax on it, and whatever cost you incurred to set up your international structures is more than covered very quickly in short order, even for something as little as $500,000. So if I can help you with this, that's what we do here. There's a link below this video if you'd like to set up a free 15-minute no obligation phone call. I'm happy to talk to you to see if we'd be a good match to work together. And if you're interested in just dipping your toe in and sort of getting a basic overview of what a competent plan B looks like, I put together a very simple primer. It's a 56-page ebook called the Bulletproof Plan B. All good Plan Bs will involve these 4 pillars that I identify in that ebook. And also, I've just completed a new book. If you're on the fence about whether or not an international lifestyle makes sense to you, I put together something about my own journey, about why international structuring isn't just about wealth preservation. It isn't just about adventuring. It isn't just about having options in other countries by getting residencies and passports and all the rest. It's about living the best version of your life. What I discovered over and over again, and not just me, but I give you my own personal journey, that by living an international life, I became much more than I ever imagined I could have become. And this has happened to me over and over throughout the various chapters of my life because I started out early trying to figure out where the other places I could go, where I either had an advantage or I could learn something tremendous from the culture where I was staying. Here I am at my property in Guatemala, as I said at the beginning of this video, and I'm taking a trip down memory lane. An old man that I studied medicine with here for 9 years in the forest in Central America, he just passed away recently, so it's natural time to kind of reflect, but that education gave me the chance to go teach doctors in places like Cleveland Clinic and hospitals in Chicago, and giving me the opportunity to travel the world, really, to teach what I had discovered about medicine in the forest in Guatemala. I've never been to med school, right? That's the kind of advantage, and when I say living your best version of your life, that's what I'm talking about. The kinds of things that you discover if you internationalize your life can change your entire idea of what your life is all about. That's enough out of me for this video. Just understand, this notion of 2 truths is going to come in damn handy in the months and years to come. You have to be able to think outside of the official narrative that you're being told. If you want a good community where that kind of thing is going on, and you want to talk to me, or you want to share sort of what your situation is and find out more about the kind of people that I get to move in the circles that I move in, please contact me at the email below. Thanks very much. And remember, if you want to avoid the chaos that's just over the horizon, the single best thing you can do is get out of town.